Great. So it looks like we're live. Hi, Ryan. This is Ramon Ray, a marketing and technology evangelist at Infusionsoft and smallbiztechnology.com. And we're talking today to Ryan Holiday. I believe the last name is pronounced, but he'll correct me in 2 seconds. So, Ryan, please tell us who you are and who you work for. You may work for yourself. And tell us a little about yourself that we may not know about you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, first off. So my name's Ryan Holiday. I'm a marketing expert. I was formerly the director of marketing at American Apparel. I've worked with a number of New York Times bestselling authors, Tucker Max, Timothy Ferriss, Robert Greene, John Romanello. So I sort of specialize in helping controversial clients spread interesting or unusual methods, and then most recently, I wrote a book called Growth Hacker Marketing, which just came out with Penguin Portfolio today, where I sort of wanted to, basically what I did was I sort of looked at the last, $5 or $6 billion brands that were created sort of right before our eyes. So you have your Facebooks, your Twitter, Airbnb, Dropbox, these brands that have sort of ingratiated themselves into our lives out of nowhere. And I asked the question, who made these and how? And the answer is this sort of new approach to marketing known as growth hacking.
Got you. And your other book I read previously as well. What was the name of that book? That was about all kind of PR as well, kind of your story. What was the name of it? The Lies?
Yeah, it's called Trust Me, I'm Lying, Confessions of a Media Manipulator.
Exactly. That was very good. I read it on my iPad. I couldn't stop reading it on the plane somewhere. So I
Thank
got a
you.
lot of tidbits.
Yeah.
But no, thank you, Ryan, very much for talking to us today. And I think marketing, Ryan, and PR is very interesting. And I'd like to talk more about definitely your book that's coming out today, Growth Hacker Marketing. But tell us, just overall from your experience, marketing and PR, have you found, and this is a rhetorical question, have you found the world have changed? Clearly, 20 years ago, whatever that was, press releases, and I guess you do what you can do. And you've done that. That's the world you've lived in.
Sure.
I think you've done a lot of your things before Twitter and Instagram and all these things were around, were so popular at least. But can you set the stage for us to talk about today's marketing? Is it different than what it has been 10, 15 years ago, or is it the same?
Yeah, sure. I think if you look at brands like Facebook and Twitter, these are companies that grew into massive user bases with essentially no marketing resources. There was no multi-million-dollar advertising budget. There was no television commercials. There was no celebrity endorsements. None of the things that sort of marketers say you have to do. Or what if you hired a Madison Avenue PR and marketing firm, not what they would do for you. And what did these companies do? Well, that's where growth hacking comes in. But I think what growth hacking focuses on, first off, if you were sitting down and you were trying to build a brand from the old marketing mindset, you would say, how can we get people to hear about this? How can we get awareness? How can we get attention for this? I think a growth hacker approaches that question in a slightly different way, which is they say, how do we get users? How do we get people to actually sign up for, interact with, and join our service? And then how do we improve iteratively based on that interaction?
And Ryan, talk about those two subtle differences, the aspect of how do we get people to know about it versus how we get people to use it, because the people who want people to know about it, in the end, do want them to use it. So talk about those two different approaches.
Yeah, sure. I would say vanity is the crucial difference. A marketer says, how can I get this in the New York Times, or how can I get this on the nightly news? And a growth hacker says, I don't really care what I have to do. I just want to get my first 1,000 people to sign up. And as it turns out, and I'm someone who's been profiled in these places and got my clients profiled there, mainstream media often does not drive users. It drives attention, and it can be good for status purposes, but it doesn't actually do what you're trying to do, which is at the end of the day put asses in seats. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So growth hacker marketing then is about the latter, which is how do I get, as you said, how do I get people to use this? Let's dive into that a bit. People can read the book Growth Hacker Marketing, but what are some of the one or two or whatever you like, key components then, not so much focused on how do I get people to know about it and bling bling, which I'm guessing, okay, but versus people to use it. What are you advocating that people do?
Yeah, so I think one of the most effective techniques that growth hackers use, and this is one of my favorites, is this sort of idea of platform integration. So two quick examples of that I think everyone knows or has interacted with in some way. PayPal building itself on the back of eBay, right? It became the default sort of online payment system, not by running millions and millions of dollars worth of ads telling us like, hey, you should use PayPal to pay for things online.
Right,
they picked one community, which is eBay, which had a lot of people who were trying to pay each other, and they inserted themselves in that process. And there's some interesting articles that show how PayPal actually created this bot that went around asking eBay users if they wanted to use PayPal to sort of spread it serendipitously. And then another great example is Airbnb, which is now one of the greatest and most popular sort of accommodation services, which spread itself early on by really smart integration with Craigslist. So you would post your listing on Airbnb, and Airbnb had come up with a workaround that let you automatically syndicate that posting on Craigslist, which at the time was significantly bigger in the apartments market than Airbnb was, and so they were able to essentially use this platform as a free advertising method. And that's the growth hacker mindset, I think, in a nutshell, which is, okay, we're tiny, these other people are huge, how can we use their size to our advantage to grow our company?
No, I love it. And Ryan, you and I both look like we're under the age of 10. So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
I'm a trucking company. You know,
Okay.
I'm not cool and hip. I don't get Twitter. Maybe I should, of course. That's what I advocate. That's a whole other conversation. But I'm a trucking company. I sell hairbrushes to shaved-headed black guys.
Right.
Ryan, how do I get my product? Does growth hacker marketing, I guess the question is, work for those products? Or is it just for cool, hip, and I have a widget? You know, I have a USB cool Twitter gadget.
Sure. So I actually...
Does it work for old school companies? That's the question.
Yeah. I closed the book with that exact question. And I used something from my own experiences. I did Tim Ferriss's last book, which was The 4-Hour Chef. It was published by Amazon. A lot of people don't know that because it was somewhat a controversial book, it was ultimately banned by Costco, Target, Walmart, Barnes & Noble, and every independent bookstore in the country. So we sort of had to reinvent book marketing from the ground up. And it ended up being massively successful. We used all the growth hacking techniques that I talk about in the book. And the book debuted on the various bestseller lists. It was a big success. But if you think about what books are, they're basically unchanged, 3,000 years of history. And the marketing of books is at least 100, if not 200 years old in terms of the basic model, which is write the book, get book reviews, hope book is successful, right? And so my thinking is that if you can growth hack a book, which is pretty much the oldest industry that we have, growth hacking can apply to anything. And the basic principles, which are, you don't have to accept an inferior product. Some of the best marketing that you can do is to actually improve and iterate and adjust your product based on market feedback. You can take advantage of things like platforms, like publicity stunts, that you need to actually look at the data and the analytics when you're marketing. It's not about sort of gut feelings, and it's not Don Draper. It's something very different. I very much think that those broad principles apply to any kind of marketing that you're doing. And I think what we need to see is if growth hacking is taking hold in the Silicon Valley, and it's changing these companies that are changing our lives, I think we can safely predict that we will start to see this approach to marketing infiltrate the rest of our economy and the rest of our industries, and that's ultimately why I sat down and wrote the book.
No, that's awesome. And there's only going to be one Ryan Holiday, for sure. But for those people out there, for sure, absolutely. But for those people out there who are looking doubly at their PR firm, their marketing firm, their agent, besides hiring Ryan Holiday, which is a limited commodity, how do people go forward if they want to do growth hackering, if that makes sense what I'm asking? Meaning it's probably too early to be a verb, but I have my PR firm. I've hired the guy to do my LinkedIn and Google AdWords ads. Twitter's new. One of my young college students is telling me to run, in a T-shirt down the block. So my point is, how do I find, Ryan, a growth hacker? Or is it too early to even find one to kind of give a boost to my small business if I want to do this growth hacker marketing?
Sure. I guess what I would say is, look, if a tiny startup with 3 employees doesn't need to hire a growth hacking, they can do it themselves. How can you justify not doing it yourself? Like, I think part of the problem with the marketing industry is that we say, hey, marketing is super important. It's how we communicate with our customers. It's how we sell what we do. It's probably, if not the most important, one of the most important things that we do. And that's why we're going to pay someone who doesn't work at our company to do it for us. To me, that's an insane proposition. No one is going to market your thing as well as you are. And I think these growth hacker techniques, which are lean and effective and incredibly cheap and have immense ROIs, are something that we should think about bringing internally and in-house rather than trying to find some external growth hacking firm. I think that's applying the old mindset to a new situation.
Awesome. One last question I have, Ryan, and then feel free to, if anything I didn't ask you, I know this is a short interview, but again, ladies and gentlemen, Ryan and I are not here reading the book for you. You can go read it yourself, and I recommend you read the other book Ryan did as well. And I'm sure they can follow and read all your insight on some blog, which we'll get to in a minute if you have anything else to where you want people to go to. But Ryan, final point that I have, and again, thank you for taking the time today. I think this whole concept is very interesting. We're talking to Ryan Holiday, who wrote the book Growth Hacker Marketing, and has done so much more. Done marketing advertising for a number of great clients. Most notable, I think, is American Apparel and things of that nature. So, final question, Ryan, I think, is that does growth hacker marketing have to be edgy? Again, let's say I'm a church. Who knows? Right. Let's say I'm very conservative, whatever. Do you advocate that there has to be some edginess or risk to it, or can it be plain vanilla, boring, for lack of a better word? What do you advise if someone's saying, I see what Ryan's done and it looks a bit edgy when he's done. I don't know if I want to go that far.
Sure. What I like about growth hacking is that at the end of the day, it's what gets people to use your product, and it's what gets people to continue using your product and to get them to recommend it to other people. Those are the sort of the 3 parts of growth hacking. And because growth hacking is something new and it's sort of built from the ground up, I like that it's not like marketing says, oh, no, this is marketing, and this is PR, and this is product development, and then this is advertising, and it sort of tries to put everything in these boxes.
Right.
Growth hacking, to me, is whatever works. Whatever gets people to come, to stay, and to bring other people with them. So I think growth hacking is very, very much in line with whether you're doing a trucking company, like you said, or you're a church. And whatever happens to work for you along these general principles is the best thing to do. And I don't think that you need to be controversial. I think what you need to focus on is results and data and sort of leveraging what you've got to get more of what you want.
Gotcha. And Ryan, if I asked you this probably at the beginning, but maybe you could just restate it in closing. Talking to very small businesses out there, Ryan, who are struggling, they have limited budgets. If you could just imagine all of them together, shake them up, they're in front of you, all 25 million of them or so. What are the 1 or 2 or 3 steps that you'd say to that busy small business owner? They're frustrated, the whole social media thing and traditional press releases, they're trying to do their marketing, trying to do events. Just recap for us, Ryan, from your, if you were speaking to them today, and you are, 2 or 3 things they can go out to do today or next week that you think, even to get a little bit of edge, to get people to use their products more. What are 2 or 3 things you say?
Yeah. So let's look at the proposition again. Facebook, Twitter, Airbnb, Dropbox, Square. These are companies that have hundreds of millions of users, billions between all of them, and they didn't use the traditional marketing techniques that we as people launching our own products think for some reason we need to have. So let's throw that whole playbook out and look at what these people have actually done, which is they've built a product that's spreadable and shareable and easy to bring people in, and then they found cheap, effective ways to do that, and they weren't afraid to break rules, to engineer workarounds, to do whatever it took to bring those first customers in, because they knew their product, once those people came in, would facilitate more and more and more, and they were able to bootstrap their way to success, which is what all of us are trying to do. And I think growth hacking presents a way to do that, and that ignoring those lessons is the dumbest thing that we can do. And I wrote this book just to ideally to distill some of those lessons and to make them applicable to people who are not, engineers at a startup in Mountain View right now.
Awesome. And Ryan, do you have a copy of the book at arm's length near you right now?
Well, it's an ebook, so I've got it printed out right here. For
awesome. Okay, great. And this reminds me, Ryan, of Scott Hintz at TripIt. He was on the co-founding team, and he told me, Ramon, all we did to grow our company was we just listened to our customers. Yep. If they said we want an orange button, assuming it was they evaluated it, it became an orange button the next day. If they said we don't like sliding down this way, okay, engineering team, let's get the slide up. So that's what I'm hearing you're saying as well.
Yeah, look, I think people think that that's a product decision, but it's also a marketing decision. If your customers are saying, hey, your service will be better if you do X, and you do it and your service gets better, they're going to be more likely to spread the name and recommend your product, which is marketing. And so I want people to expand their definition because that's where they're going to get the best results.
Awesome. Ryan Holiday, author of Growth Hacker Marketing, and an awesome, I think, consultant and PR and marketer, and definitely well known for helping put American Apparel on the map. And I'm Ramon Ray, marketing and technology evangelist at Infusionsoft and Small Biz Technology. So Ryan, thank you for spending some time with us today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.